Hey everyone, Cars here from ADifficultTruth. Friends of Science, which is basically the PragerU of climate change now, continues to push this bogus and misleading report of 500 scientists and qualified commentators stating that there's no climate emergency. The original video, which I actually responded to, and you can watch that up here, has over 450,000 views. That is a lot of people who have watched this misleading information. A more recent video called Censoring Climate Now is them crying about how the media won't pick up this bogus story. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. Covering Climate Now censors no climate emergency news. On September 23, 2019,
Okay, so this is the report in question. Again, I'll point your attention to the top right. Professor Goose Burkhout. He is a known climate change denier. He was originally employed by Shell. He was an engineer there. He helped found the Clintel Foundation, which has been, again, known to spread climate change denial information, and is backed by the oil and gas industry.
Some 500 qualified scientists and professionals from around the world issued a registered letter to the UN Secretary General explaining that there is no climate emergency.
Can we just take a moment to also note that a global network of 500 scientists and known commentators isn't really that much if you think about it.
This news was launched the same week that Greta Thunberg gave her now famous "How dare you" speech at the UN. The hysteria around a climate emergency was also criticized by an official with the World Meteorological Organization. The General Secretary of the WMO, Petteri Talas of Finland, said that the alarmist agenda was unjustified, and he blamed the media for promoting climate hysteria. A Friends of Science video on no climate emergency has gone viral, with more than 400,000 views as of October 2nd, 2019.
Again, that is an absurd amount of people who have seen this misinformation. Look, this no climate emergency report, according to Climate Feedback, 6 scientists analyzed this letter and estimate its overall scientific credibility to be very low. A majority of reviewers tagged the article as biased, cherry-picking, inaccurate, and misleading. Yikes.
Clearly, the public are interested. Why aren't the media? Despite CNN claiming that some 300 media outlets have signed on to the Columbia Journalism Review's campaign entitled Covering Climate Now, there's been almost no mainstream media coverage of the story of 500 scientists and professionals disputing the climate emergency mantra.
Because it's bogus and very misleading.
So prevalent in the press. The absence of coverage has Friends of Science Society asking if the media are censoring climate now. In Canada, this raises curious questions as the mainstream media are supported by tax-funded programs like aid to publisher grants in the millions of dollars per year. More recently, the Liberal government created a media fund of some $600 million distributed to a select group of print and online media newspapers. At the outset of Canada's election campaign, environmental groups were warned that Elections Canada sees climate change as a partisan issue.
Oh, I see. So this is a Canadian channel. I did not know that until literally today.
Therefore, those presenting a paid side over a $500 fee would have to register as a third party. Despite howls of protests from ENGOs that they were being silenced, in fact, all they had to do was register. Few have done so. Any such group is still entitled to present their views via unpaid social media and by email. The fact that mainstream Canadian media—
So now it's mainstream Canadian media. Gotcha.
—have not picked up on the no climate emergency story begs the question of when do these publishers become identified as partisan? The sums of money received by media from Canadian taxpayers are non-trivial. According to Canada Land, in the past, Maclean's magazine has received millions of tax dollars from the Aid to Publishers program. It's not clear what, if any, money was granted to Maclean's under the current plan. in an email campaign. True North Media states that hundreds of thousands of tax dollars are streaming to mainstream newspapers, now apparently only to tell one side of the climate story.
That's because there's only one side to this story. The overwhelming majority of scientists involved in this all agree and are in consensus that this is a crisis. This is an absolute crisis, and it's getting worse.
This means tax dollars are being co-opted for a particular view, and these publications are not observing charter principles of freedom of the press.
Hold on, the government's job is to provide the most accurate information to protect the public. I mean, climate change is serious, and if the government is spreading bogus information like these people, then that's a problem.
In Canada, the national broadcaster, CBC Radio-Canada, is funded by taxpayers for more than $1.4 billion a year. And CBC has also been running Climate Change in Your Backyard, a series with a focus on the climate crisis. And it has not picked up the story of the 500 scientists who state there's no climate emergency. Friends of Science Society says this is a disservice to Canadians who should be informed about dissenting views on climate change, particularly in light of the distressing news that many people are now suffering from eco-anxiety over media hype on climate.
Yeah, because they're beginning to realize just how serious this is.
If you think that your local media should be telling the story of the 500 scientists who dispute the climate change emergency,
nope.
Why don't you give them a call, write them a letter? Why don't you badger them and tell them that you want to hear the other side of the story? For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.
Wow, that is a lot of misinformation packed into those 4 or 5 minutes. You know, Friends of Science, you know what is a disservice to the public? Not stating who you're really backed by. What is the big deal about being upfront with your subscribers and telling them that you're backed by the oil and gas industry? There should be nothing wrong with that if you've got nothing to hide. When this planet does become uninhabitable, it'll be people like you who will shoulder the blame. Future generations will look back and hold you accountable. I only have one question. How do you sleep at night, knowing that you are responsible for the planet's destruction? Anyway guys, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and ring the little bell so that you get notifications when our videos go live for you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/ADifficultTruth. Make sure you like us on Facebook at facebook.com/ADifficultTruthOfficial. You can also listen to the podcast at soundcloud.com/ADifficultTruth. And now you can follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/ADifficultTruth. Come be a part of the conversation. I'll leave all the links in the description below, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. See ya!